Everybody, welcome to the third installment of the Bridge the Gap DFS, the 5 steps to help you manage your daily fantasy sports bankroll. I wanted to take some time to get some input from some of you guys regarding how the first 2 sessions went. Got a lot of great feedback, getting some great views. Again, if you like this, please like it, subscribe to my page, share with your friends. If you want to hit me up on any of the socials, I'm only on Twitter. At SwimJG. If you feel free to email me alldayjg@yahoo.com. All my contact info is below, and we'll get rolling right along here, guys. The third step to being a profitable DFS player is you got to be patient. So in step 1, we talked about getting your household finances in order. You can check that video out. Step 2, you want to have a plan about what you're doing. Clemson just won the national title this year, and they did so in such a way of, hey, that was our goal to win the national title, and they had a plan working it all the way to the end. So I want to talk about the importance of being a big fish in a small pond. Before you know what you're doing, you really should take the time to understand what's available for you, how the sites work, and being able to stay in a way that you can win and continue to win. So you build up your bankroll so that as you outgrow certain ponds, you have enough money to sustain you at the next level that you're going to get to. And we'll cover all of that today. So one of the intricacies is a millie that DraftKings has that not a lot of people know about. It's really not that important, but I want to be able to cover it with you guys so they have a better understanding of why it's so important to start at the very bottom. DraftKings has a $1 million buy-in restriction. Basically, if you've put in over $1 million in play at your current level, the history of your account on DraftKings, you can no longer play in any $5 contest or lower unless the prize pool is over $25,000. So this isn't going to limit you too much on the main stuff. The big tournaments at the $3 and $4 level are typically over a $25,000 prize pool, but the secondary contests are going to be under $25,000, so you won't be able to play at these stakes anymore. So if you are just playing in a bunch of high buy-ins, $20, $40, and you're putting a couple $100 in play every night, you could go through your limits within a couple of years, and you might get back and like, man, you know what, I really wish I would have tried some stuff here at the smaller stakes and experimented, and you won't be able to do that once you go over that $1 million mark. If you're curious about where you're at, you can email DraftKings. They'll tell you where you're at in your buying process. So levels, we talked about this in the previous video, and this is the personal staking plan and bankroll management that I came up with. And there are 3 different options. Basically, there's an option for a person who doesn't mind risk, and it's just like, hey, I've got a main source of income, and I just want to try to make 10 grand as fast as possible. Cool. I can help you with that. For this person that is a little bit, that's for a risk-seeking person. If you're a risk-averse person, or putting too much money in play makes you nervous or affects your style of play, I've got an option for that. And then I've got a customizable option for you as well. So we'll dive right into the plan for the risk seeker. So basically, if you have, you've been struggling with bankroll management, maybe you've had some success, this is what I recommend is, hey, if you want to kind of take your emotions out of it, clear out your account and just start with just playing at the quarters. See how long that takes you. Once you get $250 in profit, move it to $1. You can move up pretty quickly, usually in less than a month per level, depending on how viable and how good your strategy is. But this is something I came up with last year. I read a poker book, talked about building a bankroll, and the guy had basically started with $200, ran it all the way up to $10,000. And so I just got to thinking about, I don't want to think about too much what contests I should be in day to day. I just want to just kind of auto enter everything. That way I can execute my strategy and focus my mental energy and attention on that. So I came up with this. I used this last year. It worked fairly well for me. I was able to use the money that I got from DFS. Took the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover. Was able to pay off my debt through DFS winnings in the process of maximizing my emergency fund through the Dave Ramsey plan, and that led me to this option here for the risk-averse person. As I'm building up my emergency fund, I really want to make sure that I'm not accumulating any debt, and I'm not putting myself in a position where I'm having to make a bunch of deposits, since I essentially am starting over. So until I get my account back over $10,000, I'm just playing at the $2 buy-ins. And then as I grow my bankroll, this is money that the goals that I have, there's a built-in 20% stopgap at each level. And this also gives me some wiggle room. Like, let's say I'm at level 3 and I've got 20 grand. And I don't really want to just keep rolling. Maybe I can withdraw 5 grand. That takes me to 15 grand, which puts me back at level 2. And then I'll continue to play at level 2 until I get back that 5 grand that I've pulled out for retirement, extra expenses, investing in a house project, whatever. Just a chart for me to have that whatever money I have in the bank that's dedicated for DFS dictates what contest I will allow myself to play in. I was working with a new player this last week, and none of those options really worked for him. And we decided, hey, well, you know what? The beauty of the levels is that you can make them your own. So this is a customizable program that I put together for him that basically expands the levels a little bit and will allow him to know exactly what type of contest that he should be playing in. And this is pretty much when I was building my bankroll, the contest selection that I went with. This is on DraftKings. DraftKings has the best options for a brand new player, especially if you want to get a lot of volume in. We'll cover what sites offer which for a newer player, but this is basically how I started with building up my bankroll. Just played the quarter jukeboxes, allowed myself to play this is back when they were called the quarter arcades, and I'd play in a bunch of them. Let's say I'd play in 10 quarter arcades in a night. I'd play all the slates, the main slate, the turbo slate, the night slate, and 20 max entries. So that's 20 times 5, that's $5. And let's say I had 10 in play in a night, that's $50. So I had almost 300 lineups that I would be constructing for $50. So I was able to learn a ton without putting an amount of money that I was going to lose in the sleepover. As I profited, I would continue to look for other stuff that I could find in a quarter buy-in level. So that's where you're looking at the contest. The micro boosters, again, moved up, started taking on some of the winner-take-alls, and then started getting in the satellites. We talked about satellites in the last video about how you should try to win tickets into satellites for tournaments that you want to play in that are higher than your buy-in. That's how you can take your shots while saving your bankroll. Once you move up to $1,500, you can start dipping your toe in the $1 until you get up to 10 grand, and then you can go revert back to the plan that I'm on, where level 2 is $5 and less, and all these buy-ins that's the max threshold. So at level 3, a $20,000 buy-in, you can play in every contest in $15 or under. So lights, camera, action. Where can you get your action in? So we'll cover some of the pros and cons of every site. DraftKings is the site that I recommend the most for a new player. It's where I have about 99% of my action. The things that I like about DraftKings, they have great selection. The fields are a little bit bigger, but the unique benefit is they open up new contests every slate on a sliding scale the closer it gets to lineup lock. So what I mean by that is, for instance, tonight when things lock at 4 o'clock Pacific, they'll open up a new quarter contest at like 3:30, and that might have a field of like 2,000 people. And then they'll open up another one at 3:45, and that might have a contest of 1,000 people. And then they'll open up another one at 3:55, and that might only have a field of 500 people. So that's how you get your volume, is just paying attention to the nuances of the various sites. Because I've played at DraftKings so long, I know almost exactly when new contests are going to be open, and you can get a rhythm of when they're going to open by just hanging out in the lobby and seeing, okay, well, this one that I'm already in is about to fill, so chances are they're going to be opening a new one soon, and I'll load lineups so that I can just auto instantly enter, and then I can just edit my sheet as I go. Their contests are consistent. They're going to have pretty much everything I'm looking for every single day. I can get the identical amount of volume I want without, oh, well, today I had $200 in play and I lost, and on Wednesday I was only able to get $120 in play and I won. That can hurt your overall ROI and your overall winning percentage and being able to maximize your returns as much as possible. So DraftKings, you definitely get that consistency. They have late swap for every sport, which is awesome. If an injury happens, you're not screwed. You can at least get somebody else in there. The thing I love most about DraftKings is they have multiple slates. So most NBA nights, most Major League Baseball nights, they'll have a slate at 4 o'clock, typically one at 5 o'clock, and then another one at like 6, 7, 7:30. So you get about 3 different slates a day, which really helps you hone your strategy. I actually probably am more profitable in the secondary slates than I am in the main. The secondary slates I can pretty much win more consistently. The main slates, I still play in them because when I do win, it's usually a big win. But it allows you to continue to experiment, and I will always talk about style and rhythm. Find the style of play that you like, find the rhythm of what type of play you want to be involved with. You just want to play main slates and be done for the night, or do you love it to the point where you want to play in everything because that helps you get better and you enjoy it and everything that goes with that. And then with DraftKings, you can script, which is great, which basically means you can build on a site like Fantasy Cruncher that I use. Other sites allow you to do this. Most sites will have an optimizer that you can build, and then it will produce a CSV, a Microsoft Excel sheet, and then you can just upload that directly into DraftKings. We've covered that in a previous video, but if anybody needs help, I can upload that, no problem. FanDuel, the selection's a little bit limited. The quarter contest on FanDuel usually has a huge field, so your chances of winning it are very small. But if you're good and you like FanDuel, I just prefer DraftKings formats more. But you can certainly start at a quarter level buying on FanDuel. They do have smaller slates, but the options are really limited. You might be able to get a couple of contests in for under $1 or $2, and typically most of the selections in the smaller slates are going to be like your 10-cent satellite or quarter satellite entries. So there's not a ton of value in playing that unless you love it. And as far as my understanding, they do not have late swap for basketball. They just drop the lowest score. Football, they have late swap. Baseball, I believe they have late swap, but they might implement the basketball thing with baseball where they just drop the lowest score, which is not the most efficient way to do things and pretty much why I choose. I just don't understand. DraftKings just does everything better than FanDuel for the most part, and I don't understand why FanDuel needs to be so stubborn to make it more challenging on their players. A couple smaller sites. Fantasy Draft is a phenomenal site for a new player. The contests are available every single day. It doesn't cost that much. For about $30, you can get into pretty much everything they have under $1 or less. The fields are a lot smaller. The contest selection, they don't typically open new contests after the main ones fill. They do for football sometimes. Basketball, I've only seen it about once, but typically I would say they don't. The main deterrent for playing on Fantasy Draft, though, is there's no late swap. So if you have somebody that's ruled out from an injury, you're taking a 0 from him. Some people actually prefer that because they don't want to be monitoring news all night. So if that's how you like to do it, Fantasy Draft might be the best option for you. There's only one slate. There's no smaller slates most of the time. The only time there will ever be multiple slates is on typically like a weekend where there's games in the morning and games in the afternoon, but they don't open up games throughout the evening. And you can upload and script here. You can upload and script at FanDuel as well and Fantasy Draft. The only site that you cannot script on is Yahoo. You can build your lineups on a site like Fantasy Cruncher for Yahoo, but you have to manually enter them by hand, either through their app or through the desktop. Their selection's somewhat limited. Their main slates are pretty solid. They cap everything at 10 max entry or a single entry. The fields are going to be smaller than the DraftKings and the FanDuel. There are some smaller slate options, not as much as DraftKings, but definitely better than FanDuel. They do have late swap, and again, not being able to script is the thing that I don't really like about Yahoo, but some people like that. Again, you've got to find your style and you've got to find your rhythm of how you like to play, and then keep going and moving forward as you get more efficient in your process and become more profitable. So next thing is huge. Just change everything for me is just practicing. Most people, when they build lineups, that's it. They build for today and they don't go back and look at what could have gone differently. There's going to be a lot of intricacies and nuances you're going to find from going back and studying your lineups. Fantasy Cruncher, you can study for free on their lineup rewind. Fantasy Labs, also, you don't have to pay for Fantasy Labs to go back and look at their models and do some back testing there. I can't recommend this enough. If you're just putting in a couple bucks, that's fine. But if you really want to get better, before you put any money in play, you should have something that works. It's okay to experiment, or hey, I want to try this out. And that's why it's really important to play at the quarters, money that's not really going to affect your overall lifestyle. But once you learn and once you've been able to back test, it really adds to your confidence, and you can really see, okay, you know what, I can hold my own here. And oh, hey, I just became a profitable player. You know, most people are not profitable on these sites. So if you're a consistently profitable player, you're in the top 10% of the world. So I can't stress enough how important it is to just take the time to find a strategy that works for you. And then you can go through the best site for doing this. We mentioned both of them, but Fantasy Cruncher is the best. I'll do a future video of a walkthrough demonstration of what is Lineup Rewind, how can you use it, what are you looking for, and how do you experiment with that. The other thing that I can't recommend enough is the stream with Manny Laura. I did a whole video dedicated to this, and it is the one thing that changed everything for me. I felt like if all things being equal, if I had access to the same information and tools as some of the best players in the world, I could compete with them. And so I gradually started to accumulate the pieces to the puzzle. I felt like I had most of those. I just didn't know how to put the puzzle together. And then I was able to once I started watching Manny's videos. He does them almost every day, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. He's very interactive. If you register and you ask him questions in the chats, he acknowledges, it's amazing, he acknowledges almost every single comment in the chat as he goes. There's a web address for that. The other thing that's really cool is lineupstudy.com. And Manny always talks about, hey, if you do what other successful people do, you will be successful. And he's created a site where you can actually see all of the contest data for the various contests that were entered on DraftKings. And not only can you look at the contest, you can look at the individual players. So if you want to see what some of the best players in the world are doing, you can see exactly who's in their lineups, how they built them, and start to get a feel for what their strategy is. So put up the picture of Trevor Lawrence because during the national title game, I noticed that he had something written on his tape on his left wristbands, and it turns out it's Galatians 6:9. It's an awesome verse. I went and looked it up, and I think it's extremely applicable for what we're setting out to do with having a plan and being patient. So let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we do not give up. So practice, keep studying. If you love this, it will not feel like work. If it feels like work, then maybe DFS isn't for you. But if you keep grinding, everything will come together the way that you want it to. You'll be a successful player, and you'll change your life. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. All of my contact information is below in the chat. If you like it, please like, subscribe. If you don't like it, don't tell your friends. Don't leave me any bad comments or thumbs down. Talk to you guys soon.